Dan, you are now live.
Rebecca, I think you might be muted.
No, I'm not muted.
She's not?
Oh, can you not hear?
Or my volume is turned down. But you probably were having a conversation all that time and I didn't hear anything. But more importantly, good evening and welcome to the June 23rd, 2021 meeting of the East Lansing Planning Commission. Mr. Menzer, will you please call roll?
I'd be happy to. Good evening, everyone. Commissioner Cahill, I believe, is absent tonight. Commissioner Sullivan.
Here, attending remotely from my house in East Lansing, Ingham County.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams.
I am present, attending remotely from my home in East Lansing.
Commissioner Boyle. Absent thus far. Commissioner Wolf.
Here, attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Commissioner Lapine.
Here, attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan.
Commissioner Wagner.
Present, attending remotely from my house in East Lansing, Michigan.
Commissioner Bowman.
I'm present, attending remotely from my house in East Lansing, Michigan.
Commissioner Hendricks. That appears to be absent. So we've got 6.
We do have a quorum though. Thank you.
Yep.
That'll move us on to, or excuse me, I am going to read from my script here. Thanking everybody for your patience with the new technology, including volume control. All members of the public will have a chance to address the commission during public comments and during each of our 3 public hearings this evening. Each commission member will be called on individually to speak during each item. A commission member may say pass if they do not have a comment for that item. Commission members are reminded to state their name before speaking, making a motion, so on, and all votes of consequence will be taken with a roll call vote. With that, we'll move us on to item 1.2 on our agenda, the approval of that agenda. You found that in your packet this weekend. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Wolf, move approval of tonight's agenda.
Sullivan, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, let's have a voice vote on this. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Excuse me, and those opposed? That motion carries. Move us on to item 1.2, the approval of the minutes. These are the minutes of the June 9th, 2021 meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Wolf, move approval of the minutes of the June 9th, 2021 meeting.
Lapine, second.
Thank you. That's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Lapine to approve the minutes of the June 9th, 2021 meeting. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, again, let's have a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries as well. We have no committee reports this evening, which will move us on to item 3, 3.1, staff reports or project updates. Is that you, Mr. Menzer?
Yes. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here with you again tonight. So under project updates, what I wanted to do is just provide a little kind of the rest of the story on some of the items that you've seen recently. And we can see if this becomes a regular feature in the Planning Commission agenda or not. When there is news to announce. So I just wanted to go back, at least since in my tenure here. So back in May, if you remember, you saw a special use permit from the Graduate Hotel there at Abbott and Evergreen. Those liquor licenses were approved by City Council. So following your approval, they did go to Council and were approved. In late May, at the May 25th Council meeting, the parking lot there was a site plan filed for a parking lot at the former Bigby space there at 270 West Grand River Avenue. That request was withdrawn. So they will not be developing a parking lot there. You will see some parking on the site, not in the location of the footprint of the building. And that is hopefully pending future redevelopment, but they're not planning on further developing that into a commercial parking lot. Last night's city council meeting, the MSU FCU proposal at Coolidge Road, so that's the new headquarters branch out there at Coolidge, was approved. Or sorry, no, not yet. They set the public hearing for July 13. So we'll be sending notices out and have that on the July 13 city council agenda for a public hearing. The special use permit for the fraternity at 128 Collingwood was approved, subject to the conditions added by the Planning Commission. And then the Arbor Glen Land Division, that was just that sliver of land next at the west side of the Arbor Glen Apartments, that was approved last night as well, also subject to the conditions approved by the Planning Commission. So I'll continue to provide updates like that, just as I know not everyone always has time or to follow them as they leave at some of these issues as they go further beyond the council. So I'll try to keep you in the loop on those. The other announcement I wanted to make was that I believe that the August meeting of the Planning Commission will be in person, and I'll certainly have more details for you in the future. What I heard yesterday was that we might be at the Hannah Center, but I will confirm that and shoot you all an email, and certainly we'll have it on all the social media channels and the city website. And that's all for my report. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Menzer. Any questions for Mr. Menzer? Okay, seeing none. I'll make a note that Commissioner Hendricks has entered the meeting at 7:08. Welcome. And, oops, excuse me, Commissioner Sullivan, were you waving? Okay, thank you. That'll move us on to item 4, Commissioner announcements. I'm seeing no hands. Then that will move us on to item 5, communications from citizens. This is the time in our meeting when we would typically invite members of the public to come forward and make a comment on items that are found on our agenda or maybe are not on our agenda. Typically, we would ask if you're here to make comments on any one of our 3 public hearings, you would hold your comments until the time on the agenda when those are brought up. But barring that, if you're here to make comments on other items, we'll now move into public comment, and each caller in our queue will have 5 minutes to address the commission. At the end of 5 minutes, they will be placed back on mute. The callers will be identified by the last 3 digits of their phone number or possibly their initials. When called upon, you will be unmuted. If you do not wish to speak, please indicate so by saying pass. If you do speak, we ask that you please clearly state your name and address before addressing the commission. This is not a requirement to speak, but it does help us in keeping records of this meeting. And I will note that Vice Chair Boyle has joined us at 7:09, and I will ask Ms. Urdialis to open the phone lines to the public.
Very good, thank you. The first caller in the queue has the last 3 digits of their phone number of 976. I am going to unmute and allow to talk. Caller with the number 976, you are muted. You need to unmute if you'd like to speak.
And if you're on a phone, I believe that the code is *6.
All right, we'll move to the next person. The next person in the queue is Alan Boyer. You're now unmuted and allowed to speak.
Mr. Boyer, it looks like you're self-muted. If you would just hold your space bar down if you'd like to talk.
Thank you. I'm Alan Boyer from LSG Engineers, and I'm here to speak regarding 2 items later in the public hearings. I do not have any public comment at this time.
Thank you.
The next caller in the queue is Alyssa Kennedy. I am going to allow you to speak. Looks like she disappeared. The next, the next caller in the queue is Christopher Hale. I'm going to allow you to speak.
Hello, my name is Chris Hale. I'm with Concord Hospitality. I'm an associate of Mr. Paul Duncan, and we are representing the items number 6.2 and 6.3 on your public hearing agenda. I admit that I'm a novice at this, and I was here for support for Mr. Duncan. And he was the first caller that could not get on for some reason or unmute his phone. And I would yield my time for Mr. Paul Duncan to speak for Concord Hospitality.
You'll actually be permitted significant time to speak when that item is up on the agenda. Hopefully at that time we'll have your associate will have the mute issue worked out. But
Okay.
there's no need to yield at time or to apologize either. It's sort of new to all of us at one point.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
All right, the next caller in the queue is Alyssa Kennedy. I am now unmuting you, so you are allowed to speak. Ms. Kennedy, you are on mute if you wanted to speak.
If you do want to speak, please just hold the space bar down on your keyboard.
All right, the next caller in the queue is Michelle Schumacher. I'm going to unmute you and allow you to speak. Ms. Schumacher, you are muted. If you wanted to speak, you need to unmute.
And Michelle Shoemaker from LSG Engineers and Surveyors, here to answer questions if there are any on the agenda items 2 and 3 for Concord.
Thank you. We'll invite you forward with the applicant when those items are on in front of us as part of our public hearings. Thank you.
The next caller is Paul with Whitman Peterson. You are unmuted and allowed to speak.
Yes, I'll pass.
And the last caller in the queue is T. Fitzpatrick. I am now unmuting you and allowing you to speak.
I have no comments until we get to our project. Thank you.
That completes all the callers in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Dallas. Then that will bring us back to our, that will end the communications from citizens and move us on to our public hearings. We have 3 tonight. The first item 6.1, a request from the Boji Group to modify a condition related to fencing material for an approved special use permit and site plan at 1100 Trowbridge Road. Mr. Menzer, is this you?
It is. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay. Well, I would just want to provide a brief background on the request. So if you're following along, the staff memo starts on page 7 of the bigger packet. So really, this is it's a request for a modification to a site plan approval that was made by City Council back in 2017. So the request is from the Boji Group and the specific condition was related to a fencing material. So literally the material used to construct a fence in the northwest corner of the site at 1100 Trowbridge Road. The development is a Spring Hill Suites Hotel and a 1-story commercial building with a drive-through window. Those were approved with a special use permit and site plan review at the council meeting in 2017, and the development was built in 2019. So included in that approval were a variety of conditions. but specifically a couple related to screening between the commercial development and the residential properties adjacent at the north and west sides of the property. So there were two conditions really that spoke to screening. Condition 11 was the requirement of a 6-foot tall brick fence along the north property line. So that was constructed with the rest of the project and stands today. Condition 15 required the replacement of a 6-foot, at the time, an existing 6-foot tall wooden fence in the northwest corner of the site with a new 6-foot tall concrete or brick wall that connects an existing brick wall on the west side of the property that was put up and used by the adjacent apartment complex with the new brick wall that was required in condition 11 on the north side of the property. So you see there's approximately, I think, 58-foot wood fence, 58 feet in length. There's a wood fence there today that bridges those two walls. So the request in this case was the condition from council specifically requested a concrete or brick wall to connect those two walls. In this case, the applicant installed a wood fence instead of the materials required by council. Typically, modifications to a site plan can be done administratively. In this case, because it was a specific condition required by council, we do have to go back through this process. The applicant's requesting that that condition be removed and that the existing wall be allowed to stand. I would point out that the existing wall is approximately 8 feet at its highest point. So the council or planning commissioner council is unable to provide a waiver for the height of the fence. So this, if the modification is approved or recommended for approval by the commission and ultimately approved by council, the applicant will still need a variance for height of the fence because the highest we allow is 6 feet at the property line in this case. So that hearing is scheduled before the Zoning Board of Appeals at its meeting on July 7. So we've included a lot of materials in the packet, including some photographs that I took of the site over the last month. Really, I just want to emphasize, I guess, that the only issue under consideration at this time is just the material of the fence. The height will be dealt with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So really, you're just determining whether or not the applicant can keep the wood fence or whether or not the condition required by council for a brick or wall be carried out. So I did include a couple things here just for your consideration. There's just like at the last meeting, I did include a motion to suspend the bylaw to vote on the same evening. That is, if you're interested. I wasn't sure if this met the scope of the kind of scope decision that you may be interested in voting the same night, but I wanted to provide the option if you are so inclined. And then also a motion to recommend approval if you're so inclined to do so. I've included some conditions as well, basically that the existing conditions on the development remain in place and that the requirement for the Zoning Board of Appeals or that the applicant has to receive approval for the height of the fence from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And if they do not receive that, the fence would have to then be reduced in height, whether it's made of wood or brick or stone, down to the 6-foot maximum that the city allows. And also that they require a new revised memorandum of special use permit that just memorializes the result of this process. So if you have any questions, I'm available. Their applicant spoke and is also available tonight as well. Thank you.
Any question for Mr. Menzer? Vice Chair Boyle?
Not really a question, just a clarification. I believe the wall between Arbor Forest Apartments and this property is block painted dark brown, not brick.
Oh,
sorry if I misspoke. Yeah, it might have been the brown. Brown is on my mind. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that if I'm not mistaken, you live there. I thought it was brick on one side and block on the other.
It's brick along the back, which is the new wall that was erected by the applicant, and that's brick. But the existing wall, which I believe is actually Arbor Forest's wall, is block that's been painted.
Certainly the side that faces the hotel is brown painted block.
Right. And the wooden part is connecting the brick wall to the block wall.
Yes. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Menzer? Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, how did this discrepancy come up, or how did the city discover the discrepancy?
Well, that's a good question. It kind of, when I started, so I started in mid-April, and I became aware of it via an email, actually from the applicant, that was asking about some outstanding issues that the previous administrator had been following up on. The applicant may be able to explain more, but I really kind of just picked up the ball and ran with it and compared the conditions that were approved by council with what's existing on site, and kind of just determined a path forward and for consideration of what they installed. But I don't have a lot more history than that. Ms. Fitzpatrick may know more.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, the supplemental site plan that was sent this afternoon, I would say indeed indicates that the wall that was going to be constructed, at least was proposed to be wood, but I think council makes it pretty clear that they had intended it to be concrete, 6-foot concrete or brick wall to connect the west side of the property line, with a new brick wall being. So I guess we'll see where that proceeds. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Menzer? Okay, let's, Ms. Urdialis, could we bring the applicants forward? I know Ms. Fitzpatrick is one of them. I don't know if perhaps she has other representatives with her.
Ms. Fitzpatrick, I'm going to unmute you and allow you to speak.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can? Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thank you everybody for allowing us to be on the agenda, and for the planning department moving so quickly once we came up on this. I think that a little bit of background might be helpful to see how this developed in the first place. The fence that is there now, that we constructed, the wood fence in that area, was the same dimension and material that it was previously. When we initially submitted our site plan, we had included on the site plan that the existing wood fence was going to remain. The reason we indicated that, and certainly we had no opinion on that, was because during our community engagement efforts, which we worked a lot with the local community and neighborhood who were very involved in the process, they were very adamant, Arbor Forest was, that that fence be allowed to remain as it was, particularly because they had so much mature vegetation and trees in that area, which I think you can see from the pictures. And when we said, this fence is on our property, not on your property, as the separator concrete wall is on the west side of the property, they said, no, it's not on your property, it's on our property, it's our fence, and we don't want you to do anything with it. And, the survey clearly shows in the title that it's on our property, but, what came back at us is that fence has been there the 50 years we've owned this property. If we have to take legal action to acquire that property where our fence is, that's what we'll do. So we said, okay, let's be good neighbors. Obviously this is really important to you. Would you consider cost sharing replacement of the existing wooden fence, because it was in such poor condition, which they did. And so that's how we resolved that issue. I have spoken to and emailed the owner a few times since this issue came up again, to say the easiest thing for us to do would be just to take 2 feet off the top of that fence. They've not been very responsive. And so, as far as our position, we don't really care if the fence, if something has to happen. We do believe that it becomes a legal entanglement about whose property it really is and what the outcome is really going to be. And so that's why we, just tried to work with the neighbors and find a resolution that worked for everyone. It is in a very secluded area in the northwest corner of the property. It's secluded in both from our perspective and from Arbor Forest. Again, as you can see from the pictures, they were very concerned about disturbance of mature trees and vegetation in that area. It is it was a very important item for them, and one that they believed they were, they got some ground with when in general they were in opposition to the project. So that's why we're here today. This finally came up. The hotel's been operating now for a couple of years. The retail building is now 2/3 full. And as we went through the process of finalizing things, this was one outstanding issue that in some way needed to be resolved. So that's where we are. If you have a specific question, I'm certainly available to answer it for you if I can.
Any questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick? Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, you haven't addressed the issue of the requirement in the site plan approval. You didn't mention that when this went to City Council, they specifically put in a requirement that that segment was to be a 6-foot concrete or brick wall with no ifs, ands, or buts. And in addition, your own final site plan that was submitted to the city, which we have a copy of now, clearly shows that that segment is to be a 6-foot brick or block wall. So how did all this other negotiation with the neighbors happen? And why did you think that was overriding what the city was requiring?
Well, I did speak with representatives at the planning department while this issue was in place. It came about, and unfortunately, people are no longer there. So there's not the institutional knowledge on it. But when I said, we've come to this impasse, this is what we think the resolution should be, and was basically told no one wants to start a bunch of lawsuits. And so, if that's the best way to resolve it, that's how you resolve it. Clearly I should have came back and taken more formal action at that time, but did not do that. So we didn't do it in a vacuum and think that the issue, we would just ignore that one condition. We did seek advice on that.
So all of these discussions you're talking about with the neighbors happened after City Council had approved this and
Yes.
put that condition in effect?
Yes.
And after you had submitted the final site plan as well?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick? Vice Chair Boyle?
As to the question of whose fence it is,
Yes.
Has that been resolved?
It has not.
Is there any agreement about who is to maintain it? Because a wooden fence would at least be likely to require more regular maintenance than a block or brick fence would.
Correct. The verbal agreement at the time and was that we would share both the construction of it and the maintenance of it. That has been how it's been handled this far, although the fence is very new. We certainly would absolutely, maintain it, as I'm sure that Arbor Forest would want to as well.
And one other question, are you yourself familiar with the fence?
Yes.
Physically? All right, I was on the site today, and from the Arbor Forest side,
Yes.
there is some remnant of fencing in what would be the northeast corner of Arbor Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the fence that was replaced?
Yes.
It sort of has an angular boards at the top, and is a flat board fence.
Right. I'm not familiar with that very specific item, but the fence was replaced in the same area where the fence was. Yes.
And there's also appears to be a gate on the Arbor Forest side, on the north side of the property. You're not familiar with that either?
I am not.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, the wooden fence doesn't completely align with the brown block fence, correct?
Right.
So that's, is that the indication that you believe it is on your property rather than the arborforest property?
That is. And if on the survey, the fence is definitely on our property, as are the very mature trees that go up to the fence.
And was the original wooden fence in the same alignment as the new one? In other words, was
yes, absolutely. It's the same dimension, same location, same material. Everything's exactly the same.
So its alignment of the original one was to the east of the alignment of the block wall.
Right, absolutely. It's about 3 feet onto our property.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, this is a, Ms. Fitzpatrick, if you'd stick close in case there are questions from the public.
Sure.
This is a public hearing, and so I will take this opportunity to open the public hearing, to open this hearing to the public and invite members of the public who are present to speak. I will remind our audience that if you do not wish to speak, please unmute yourself and simply say pass so that we can proceed with the meeting.
All right, the first person in the queue has the phone number with the last 3 digits of 561. I am now unmuting you and allowing you to speak.
This was a caller. I realized that you had some difficulty earlier. I'm told that if you hit *6, it will unmute you. I don't know that I've ever made a Zoom meeting by phone before though, but.
All right, I'll go to the next caller. Alan Boyer, you are now unmuted and allowed to speak.
I will pass.
Thank you. The next caller in the queue is Alyssa Kennedy. I will unmute you and allow you to speak.
I will pass as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller in the queue is Christopher Hale. I am unmuting you and allowing you to speak.
I pass.
Thank you. The next caller in the queue is Michelle Schumacher. I am now unmuting you and allowing you to speak.
I pass.
Thank you. The next caller in the queue is Paul Duncan. I am unmuting you and allowing you to speak.
Hi, this is Paul Duncan with Concord. Can you hear me this time? Great. Sorry, I was having trouble. I finally logged into Zoom. I'm going to pass this, but I would say that the phone has been an issue and *6 does not work.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
The last caller in the queue is Paul with Whitman Peterson. I am now unmuting you and allowing you to speak.
I'll pass.
Thank you. That completes our attendees.
Thank you. I don't presume to know Mr. Dallas, but it looks like their mics might still be open. They're sort of showing up on my screen as participants. That you have control of that. That's beyond my realm, I'm afraid. But thank you for doing that. And with that, we'll close the public hearing and return this matter to the commission. Commissioner Wolf.
A question for Mr. Menser, I suppose. So we have not heard anything from the arborforest owners about this?
I have not received any calls nor any written communications or emails. No.
Okay, it's a little surprising that they had legal representation, Mr. Brookover, for this when the project first came up. I'm a little surprised that they would ignore this, but thanks.
I will note they did receive notice per our regular special use, or excuse me, hearing notice procedures.
Commissioner Sullivan, did I see your hand?
Yeah. So I guess a further clarification from Mr. Menzer. Have we heard anything from any residents or other property owners on this issue?
No, we haven't heard anything. We would have included it in the meeting packet if so, but I haven't received anything outside of the meetings either.
Vice Chair Boyle?
Yes, I'm not within the radius, but I'm a neighbor of Arbor Forest. And my concern when I saw this on the agenda was whether or not it was impairing the look of Arbor Forest, which is nicely landscaped for an apartment complex, probably one of the nicer ones in the city of East Lansing, and who spends a fair amount of time maintaining their landscaping and grounds. And I did walk the site both from the hotel side and the Arbor Forest side, and the fencing is hard to see because of the amount of plantings in that corner of Arbor Forest. Hard to see from Arbor Forest side. Certainly does not appear to cause any problems with the landscaping or the look of the Arbor Forest complex. So at least from my standpoint, I'm not surprised that we haven't heard anything from Arbor Forest, who is usually quite active if something's happening in the neighborhood. It would have been nice to hear that they didn't have a problem with it, but at least as far as I could see, and discussing it with another neighbor, it didn't look to me to be a problem that there's a wooden fence there. And in fact, it might fade into the background of the plantings better than a brick wall or a concrete block wall would. So that's just my opinion. And as a neighbor, even though I'm not within the 300-foot radius, whatever it is.
I agree that it would have been helpful to hear from the group. I visited the site as well and took a look at both sides and even tried to see it from Red Cedar Elementary. And I agree that it's much more obvious that there's this sort of discontinuity from the hotel side. And I think mindful of Ms. Fitzpatrick's comments about trying to build a concrete block or a brick wall where there's currently a wood fence would require a 42-inch deep footing and probably would adversely affect the root system of the trees that are there. Whereas digging posts, 12 feet on center would not have nearly as a severe impact. And so I don't think it looks terrific from the east side, the sort of the hotel side, but given the foliage that we see on the west side, particularly, in fact, I think when you took these photos, Mr. Menzer, it's actually filled in even more than what I'm looking at the photo right now. So I'm inclined to agree that it looks fine from the west side, and that the construction of that wall as opposed to a fence might not be the best thing for that really quite lovely the plantings that are there now. Vice Chair.
Yes, and for those who haven't visited the site, if you look at the eastern border of Arbor Forest, what you have running back from Trowbridge Avenue is a series of carports. And at the northern end of the carports, there's a small utility building with a door. And then to the north of that, there's a fenced in area, which is bicycle storage. So you don't even see the cement block wall because it is obscured with the carports, the storage building, and the bicycle storage. So you don't even see a transition between the cement block wall and the wooden fencing. Because it's all covered until you get to all the plantings, and then the plantings obscure what the wooden wall looks like.
Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, I don't quite agree with that, and there is a photograph in our packet that shows it. First of all, the wall at that point is covered with brick. It's not concrete block. It's the, I don't know, the third photograph or so. On the Arbor Forest side,
Second and third.
you can see the brick wall and where it transitions to the new wooden one. It's reasonably visible. And I also did go to the site and look at it from both sides. And in my opinion, it would look better if the brick wall had been continued. Now, I don't really know about the construction aspects of it. So I suppose it could require more excavation, more complicated construction, and I'm also somewhat concerned about the longevity of the wooden fence, especially because of all the plantings next to it. It's not going to get sun, it's not going to dry out easily when it gets wet, and it's not going to last as long as a fence like that would if it were not so surrounded on one side by the planting materials.
Good points. Any other comments? It is the pleasure of the commission to either act on this evening or to wait until our next meeting. Keep in mind that City Council, I presume, still has to see this, at least in terms of the fact that there's going to be changes to the special use permit conditions, and that the Zoning Board of Appeals still needs to see this. So it doesn't, I mean, isn't as much as time is of the essence. It doesn't sound like it's going to be resolved terribly soon. Vice Chair Boyle.
When is our next scheduled meeting?
Don't have a calendar immediately.
I'm just wondering if it's after the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I see.
If we put it over to the next meeting, will they have made a determination on the variance?
The Zoning Board of Appeals meets on July 7th. The Planning Commission meets on July 14th.
So
if we wait till the next meeting, we'll know whether or not they recommended allowing it to stay at 8 feet.
We might still have to deal with the material at that point if they,
right,
for instance, require that the height be reduced. That's still a potential issue for us, but I suppose that the Planning Commission would still have at least some general direction from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Other thoughts? All right, and if there's no inclination to act on this evening, and I'm not seeing anybody raising their hands, then we will move on to item 6. Thank Ms. Fitzpatrick for your time, and we will see you at a later meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That will move us on to item 6.2. This is ordinance 1501, the ordinance to rezone 4.5 acres at 3225 West Road from RA Residential Agricultural District to B5 Retail Sales Business District. Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. Good evening. This property, as you had mentioned, is 4.5 acres. It has a pole barn and a house currently on the property. It has frontage and access to West Road. The property is currently zoned RA Residential Agricultural District. The properties to the south and east are zoned under B4 Restricted Office Business District. The properties directly north and are zoned under the RA Residential Agricultural District. Further north, the properties are zoned under the B4 district, and the west side of the property is bound by US 127. There are several office buildings surrounding this property, but there are also a few individual single-family residential homes around the property. We do expect in the future that this will all be rezoned to a different district that's more of a mixed-use office commercial district. The site is designated as C3 in the master plan. This land use category is intended to feature a wide range of manufacturing, research, service, office, and retail uses, including hotels. Public service and facilities would not be adversely impacted by the development or uses allowed under the requested rezoning. This particular area, the utilities have been redone in the last decade, anticipating the growth in this area. The owner has just recently submitted a letter that was forwarded to the Planning Commission and also added to iCompass, where she would like the property to remain under RA zoning until the closing with the purchaser, to make sure that that goes through. She may be on the call today to speak to that. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from Ms. Schmidt? Keep in mind that this this project is divided into two separate public hearings. This first one deals specifically with the rezoning request. No questions? All right, then I'll invite the applicant to come forward, or Ms. Urdalis, if you could invite our applicant to come forward. I'm afraid that I've got several names that are potentially the applicant. I'm hoping that somebody on staff has a better idea who they've been dealing with so that we could call them forward, or start at the top again.
It may be Paul Duncan. I'm going
Why
to
don't we
allow
start
him to
with
speak.
him? Sure.
Yes, sir. Paul Duncan here with Concord Hospitality. We are the applicant, and Michelle and Alan are the civil engineers that are working with us on this project as well. So I appreciate you guys hearing us at this Planning Commission meeting, and I would just like to echo somewhat of what Darcy said. I think our rezoning request is very similar and in line with the future master plans here. The B5 rezoning falls very similar in line with the C3, I believe it is, for the future plans here. We certainly have no problem with the letter from the seller being a condition of closing. We intend to move forward and close on this, especially if we get the rezoning approved here. And we know from at least conversations with the adjacent landowner on the corner, they are supportive of this rezoning. I think they see this as a benefit to their future property as well, and know that future plans in the works down West Road would mimic what this would look like as well. So I don't think I have anything to add unless there are other questions that you'd like to ask.
Any questions for Mr. Duncan? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So Mr. Duncan, if you'd please stick close just in case any members of our audience have questions.
Sure.
Right now I'll open the public hearing for this application. And Mr. Dallas, if you'd invite Mr. Duncan's associates to weigh in if they'd like to.
All right, the first person in the queue has the last three digits of their phone number of 561. You are now unmuted and welcome to speak.
Was that not Mr. Duncan's phone number?
It may have been.
Mr. Duncan, is that your phone? Ending in 561?
No, my phone number was the 976.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I see that there is a different number here. Sorry. Please proceed. 561.
I support it.
Thank you. We typically ask if you're not averse to doing so, if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address.
Larry Dahlman, 6269 Green Road, Hazlet, Michigan.
Thank you. And is it Dahlman? Could you please spell your last name?
D like in David, A-L-M-A-N.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I know that the landowners have been trying to sell for 15 years. They had an offer from a hotel around that time that was denied by the city. I know they had a chance to possibly sell as a marijuana dispensary. That was denied. I think a hotel would be great. Personal opinion, I'd rather see a Cracker Barrel, but maybe that can go in front of the hotel. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Dahlman.
The next caller in the queue is Alan Boyer. You are unmuted and now allowed to speak. I'm sorry, I think I might have muted you again.
I think you said pass.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Sure.
The next caller in the queue is Christopher Hale. You are now unmuted and allowed to speak.
I pass.
Thank you. The last caller, no, the next caller in the queue is Michelle Schumacher. You are unmuted and allowed to speak.
I pass.
And the last caller in the queue is Paul at Whitman Peterson. You are unmuted and allowed to speak.
Yes, my name is Paul Novak. I'm one of the partners in Whitman Peterson. My address is 791 Crandon Boulevard in Key Biscayne, Florida. Normally, as I said, I wouldn't speak at one of these. We are the investment partner with Concord Hospitality. We selected them as an investment development and operator partner because of their recognized performance and ability to develop a project that every community can be very proud of. They also happen to operate the new courtyard downtown Lansing. But I just wanted to let you all know that we have connections, not connections, but we have a lifetime combination with East Lansing. I was born in Lansing, went to East Lansing schools. My dad was on the faculty. I ended up graduating with a hotel degree at Michigan State, and have been in the industry for about 50 years. I started the Courtyard concept at Marriott, and this is a concept and an investment that we really believe in, and I'm thrilled to potentially have the opportunity to come back to East Lansing and build a several $1 million investment into East Lansing. So for that, I just wanted to let you know that we have a strong sense of neighborhood and the importance of being in East Lansing.
Thank you, Mr. Novak. That's it, Ms. Alice, I believe?
That is the last caller in the queue.
Thank you. That will bring this back to the commission. Any questions, any remaining questions or directions for staff? Commissioner Wolf?
I just wanted to make some commentary about this, and not to give the wrong idea. I'm not going to say I'm opposed to this. It fits with the neighborhood, but I think it illustrates some of the difficulties of doing master plans. If you look at our master plan, in particular the C3 district, we've decided that that's what we want on the west side of West Road, and then most of the properties on the north side of Coleman Road. And in our master plan, what we say for C3, this is the aspirational part of the master plan. The intent of this land use category is to expand the city's employment industry and provide a land use category flexible enough to accommodate employment clusters, geographic groupings of businesses that are in similar industries, One such example is information technology, which might include businesses related to computer hardware or software design, engineering, manufacturing, wholesaling, and other related ventures. So this is the one area where we had the most developable land, and our hopes in the master plan were for some sort of integrated development that could take advantage of the big expanses of land there. And this just illustrates, since we have not rezoned to that yet, we're stuck with our old zoning, and there's obviously demand for other types of development that's basically the same as what we already have. We have another hotel just what, a quarter mile or less down West Road from this. That's going to be the kind of development we get, and it does fit in our current zones. So again, this is probably a good project. Rezoning it is probably the right thing to do, but just pointing out that it means, at least in this part of the proposed C3, we won't be able to accomplish what we were hoping with that district.
Excellent points. Any other comments or directions or questions remaining for staff? All right, then that we'll see this at Ms. Schmidt, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because this would be, if the applicant and the homeowner get together and decide to do a conditional rezoning, which it sounds like they may do, this will be noticed again for a public hearing for your meeting on the 14th. So just wanted to make you aware of it, because we do have to have a public hearing for the conditional rezoning. So it will still come back to you with another public hearing, and the applicant will pay for the notice. Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then let's move on to item 6.3, our final public hearing for this evening. This is a request for a site plan approval from Concord WP GP Holdings. I'm going to say that's 2. Is it? I presume that's 2. Excuse me, LLC, to construct a 4-story, 12,383 square foot hotel at 3225 West Road. My apologies for getting your name wrong. Let's see, who is it, Mr. Novak or Mr. Duncan? I'm not sure which one of you is I'm getting it wrong on. At any rate, Ms. Schmidt, please proceed.
Thank you. This proposal is based on the previous project getting approval for rezoning. The proposal includes a 4-story extended stay hotel with 122 rooms. It also includes a guest laundry room and a fitness room. The rooms may be rented for the night or the entire week. The intended occupant, based on the letter from the applicant, is transient type workers that may need a place to live, for a nurse, traveling nurse, or a construction worker, or someone who's been displaced in their house, selling a house and buying a house and need a place to stay for a short period of time. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from Ms. Schmidt? All right, then, Mr. Duncan, is this you again?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Okay.
If you have anything you want to add to, you know, in our packets, I'm sure you know, we've got site plans and drawings of the building, the proposed building.
Yes, and what I'd like to add is just simply the demand and the need for the extended stay hotels here. There are a number of hotels around here, but I think that we are servicing a very niche need that is needed here. As Ms. Schmidt mentioned, it would be those construction workers, traveling nurses, folks relocating here, needing temporary housing for whether it's a few weeks at a time or even up to a couple months at a time. But the hotel that we plan to build here is intended for those uses where they can come and set up and stay there for more than what would be at a transient hotel like a Fairfield or a Courtyard, where you are paying a little bit more, you know, over $150 a night. This is supposed to be a clean, very safe place to go, but not as much of the frills and everything else included, so that you can stay there for that extended period. So we see a strong need here in East Lansing, and we think it goes well even to Mr. Wolf's comments about relocating or redeveloping this entire area. This product is a great product for those business drivers, people coming in, you know, in Detroit, working on the factories and bringing folks in there, the specialized machinery, equipment, come in for a couple of weeks, stay at the hotel. That is the intent and the goal. You have IT development here. You have folks coming in and out of town who may need a place to come for a few weeks and not necessarily going to spend $300 a night at a high-end hotel that might be near there. So that is what we're proposing. And just one caveat I would like to mention, I think that the staff report noted just over 12,000 square foot hotel. 12,000 square foot is the ground floor square footage. It is roughly a 48,000 square foot hotel. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Duncan? Thanks for clarifying that.
No problem.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes, there's a number of issues raised in the staff report. And I wanted to know if you have any objections. There's additional requirements that have not been met so far. The sidewalk coming in from the street, additional landscaping. Looks like the height of the lights might be too tall. I think there were a couple other things, but have you read through all those, and do you see any problem meeting those requirements?
We did read through those. Our engineers are going to get in touch with I think most of those comments came from maybe the engineering department, and there are a few clarifications that we are looking for in terms of, you know, the sidewalks and making sure we can get to grade on ADA, things like that. But as far as lighting and landscaping, those items are not a problem. And I didn't see anything in the staff report that would be a major concern for us, as long as LSG, our engineers, are comfortable with being able to make everything work.
I guess another one I noticed, the water wells that have to be plugged or filled.
Yes, and I will be honest, I can't say that I understand or I know the process in Michigan to do that, but that is not something that is uncommon, and we have other sites that we've done that, and it is no issue for us. So we do intend to plan to connect to the city water on West and the sanitary on West Road, so that would not be an issue for us.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Duncan? All right. Again, this is a public hearing, so we'll invite members of the public to come forward at this time. Ms. Odalis, can we call our people forward once more?
Absolutely. The first person in the queue has the phone number ending in 561. You now are allowed to speak. Mr. Dolman, did you want to add anything?
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yes, ma'am. My wife and I recently house, and the extended stay hotel that he's referring to, I believe is an excellent idea. We've got 2 dogs, 2 cats, we were renting a place that was sold. The owner basically needed us out so the new owners could move in. We had no place to go. The type of hotel that he is recommending, I think would be wonderful. I really do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
The next caller in the queue is Alan Boyer. I've unmuted you and you are allowed to speak.
Thank you. My name is Alan Boyer. I'm an engineer with LSG Engineers and Surveyors, 3135 Pine Tree Road, Suite D in Lansing. We are the civil engineers that designed the site plan that you were reviewing this evening. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have and assist Michelle Shoemaker, who's the design engineer on the project, in answering any questions that you might have. That concludes any comments I have at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer.
The next caller in the queue is Christopher Hale. I've unmuted you and you are allowed to speak.
I'm an associate of Mr. Duncan and I pass.
Thank you. The next caller in the queue is Michelle Schumacher. I've unmuted you and you are allowed to speak.
This is Michelle Shoemaker from LSG Engineers and Surveyors, 3135 Pine Tree Road in Lansing. We're the design engineer, as Alan said. We are working with city staff to address all the comments in the letter in the minutes for this meeting that we received Friday. And we'll be working together with Paul to get those addressed and get revised site plans in. If there's any other specific questions, we can answer them. Thank you.
And the last caller in the queue is Paul at Whitman Peterson. You're unmuted and allowed to speak.
I'll pass.
Thank you. That completes all of our callers.
Thank you, Ms. Ordialis. That returns that will close our public hearing, and that will return this matter to the commission. Any remaining questions or directions for staff or for the applicant? I'm seeing no hands. I'm just checking my own notes. I'm seeing no hands, and so that being the case, we will see this at a future meeting. Thank you, Mr. Duncan and team.
You're welcome.
Item 7, we have no old business, nor item 8, new business. Item 9 is commissioner concerns. Do any commissioners have any concerns they'd like to raise? Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, for Mr. Menser, I wonder if is it possible for us to get an update on some other older projects. I have one particular one in mind, and that is the Hub 2 project on Bogue Street. The last action taken on that, I believe, was in February, maybe last year, and City Council voted to return that to the Planning Commission for further consideration. And then, of course, everything shut down. And I know typically when these things are in process, we don't like to let them sit around for more than a year or so. So I'm wondering what's happened with this.
I'd be happy to look into it. I simply don't know right now, but I can look into it and have a report for you at the next meeting.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And actually, and on that note, I thought that the comments you made at the top of the meeting were helpful. It's good to know how things are progressing. Your predecessor, Mr. Haywood, would do that as well. Oftentimes reporting back what was discussed at the previous night's city council meeting and what had been, sort of resolved at that point. So it is nice to hear, especially when things like, for instance, the former Bigby's parking lot is not going to proceed. I suspect, that question will come up. I will ask it. I'll ask it of myself probably about what's going on with that. And so knowing that, that decisions were made is always helpful. So appreciate that.
Yeah,
and I'll add also, absolutely, you're welcome. That I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you in person again. Even if it's still 2 months out. In fact, meeting some of you in person for the first time But we'll see how things progress. Any other commissioners' concerns? Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, along the same lines as the first comments, another thing I find useful or at least interesting is to get a preview of what items might be coming up at our next meeting, if that's something that you think is appropriate. In general, I think you usually know what items they are without necessarily presenting any detail. But I'm curious at this point, do you know what might be on our next agenda?
Outside of the items that were potential action on the items from tonight, we don't have any other public hearings scheduled right now. But I'd be happy to include that as an update, because you're right, we do know, given our noticing requirements, we do know ahead of time what's coming. So I'll be sure to include that in the future.
Thanks. It's obviously not something that's essential to us, but thanks.
Any remaining concerns? Very well, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Wolf, move to adjourn.
Sullivan, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan to adjourn. To have a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:13. Thank you, everyone. Please remain safe, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Yep.
Good night, everyone.
All right, good to see everybody.
Hey, everybody.
See you next time.